us for. Welcome, welcome. And this is going to be very interactive discussion we are going to have. Let your friend know that the meeting, the training has started. Let them join, and they will make way to everybody to have a spot on this engagement this morning. So welcome, everybody. We are 10 minutes past 12 now. We'll just wait for a few minutes, maybe in the next 2 to 3 minutes, then we'll start. Thank you so much for being on time. Welcome once again. So we'll talk more about the resource mobilization today, and hopefully on Wednesday, we'll deal with advocacy. So welcome once again. Thank you. So we'll start very soon, in the next 1 minute, while we are meeting more people on this platform. So for those who just joined us, feel free to introduce yourself via the chat, and we'll also be sharing a link, an introduction link, for you to click on it and introduce yourself. Introduce yourself to us. So Melissa has just shared a link, so you can see a link on the chat. Just click on the link on the chat, then you fill it for us. It helps us to keep updates with you for future engagement as well. So we want to know those who are able to made it for this training. So feel free to click on the link and then share the detail with us. Welcome, everybody. We are still admitting more people, and then we'll start shortly. We have about 211 people now. We are still counting because we expect a good number of people, because of the topic we are going to discuss is about resources. And all of us in the civil society, we need this particular item or the resources to be able to function and move our project forward. So it is an important topic for discussion, and we want to really appreciate the Climate Action Network Africa for taking the initiative to organize this training for us, because it is very, very important, and we can't thank them enough for this initiative. So we'll be starting soon. Once again, for those who just joined us, feel free to click on the link that has been shared and fill it with your information and your detailed information. So 30 minutes has passed now. I believe we can start, and then those who will come later on will follow the train. With your permission, I would like to thank all of you for making time this morning to be with us. This program has been organized by the Climate Action Network Africa. It is an organization here in the continent, and then they initiated this program, and in partnership with WACSI. WACSI is the West Africa Civil Society Institute. We are based in Accra, and we work in all the West Africa countries, including Cameroon, Chad, and Mauritania. So this is what we do. We build the capacity of civil society organization and actors to ensure that civil society is strengthening within the West Africa region and beyond. So this is one of the courses that we do implement, and we've been contacted by the Climate Action Network Africa to facilitate this for their members and those who want to be the members of the Climate Action Network. So without much ado, I would like to invite our partners Climate Action Network to give us an open remark, a welcome address for we deal with the topic of the day. So for those who are just joining, please, there's a link in the chat. Feel free to click on it and then share your detail with us. So I would like to invite Babukar to welcome us for this engagement. Thank you so much, sir. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much. I can't share my video, Farouk. Is there any way that you could assist so people could see who is talking?
So, Gideon will assist that.
Yes. Please, you can share your video. You have the and before Waka, you come in, please, colleagues. By the way, my name is Gideon Ahenko. I work with the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI. Please, quickly, for languages, we've made provision for this particular training is in 3 languages. We have French, we have English, and we have Portuguese. Please, when you check the bottom of your Zoom interface, you will see a globe sign over there. Click on the globe sign and select the language that you are comfortable with. So please take note of that and do it so that you can get the best out of it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, WACSI team. Thank you, African colleagues. Thank you, diaspora colleagues. Thank you, the world, for joining CAN Africa. My name is Babu Karnyang. I'm the Finance and Program Associate for CAN Africa. CAN means Climate Action Network Africa. CAN Africa, of course, is a coalition of African networks of over 200 members, both in regional, national, and local organizations focusing to fight against climate change. Our aim is to assert African leadership and strengthening bottom-up and people-driven work across the continent by adding value to global efforts in building climate resilience. And to that, as a network, we felt it's necessary that with all the things that are going in Africa and in the continent, we also need to put our people to the par of ensuring that their capacities are built, they know what they're doing, and then they know also how to do things in terms of climate advocacy. That is why we're bringing this training with us and my colleagues from CAN, and of course, our regional coordinator, who is the node coordinator, Safia Tunana, is from Burkina. And we also have the comms and engagement, who is Philippine, from South Africa, and myself, I'm from the Gambia, based in Nairobi. So we are here to build the capacity of members, not only members, but people who are inspiring to become members of CAN Africa. And with this training, we felt it will be important for us to interact, not only to interact during the training that WACSI will be giving us, but even after the training, how could we engage ourselves, synergize our efforts as Africans to build the coalitions of members and networks we need to ensure that climate change effects are not what it is in the global part or the global south. So it's important that we are here today as Africans from all over the continent. We have seen people from the Francophone member countries. We've seen from people from the Portuguese, and we have people from the Anglophone. So that gives us also these miles of even going further to ensure we have interpreters who will also be interpreting those languages. Because of size and other logistical arrangement, we could not do the others. But however, in our subsequent meetings, we'll also add every other language that is spoken in the African continent. But knowing that French, English, and Portuguese, all those people who are within the continent are able to understand or speak it, we think it necessary to also bring those interpretations. We hope that you will enjoy this training. And then we also hope that you will also be connecting with CAN Africa on the activities that we are coming to do. This is just the beginning of many activities that our network is coming to do. And we also hope that we will get all of you on board. We would like to thank our donors, that is Climate Action Network for Europe, through the funding of SPAC and the European Union for supporting this initiative for us to have this training for everyone who is on this platform. I thank you all. And of course, my coordinator is around, maybe before the end. Also, if she has anything to say, she will definitely say it. But on that note, I'd like to welcome all of you to this training and say we have a successful training. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Babukar and friends from Cannes, Africa. This is really a pleasure for us to partner with you to have this training conducted. So we would like to start, and then let me introduce one person who would start this engagement. We'd like to introduce Charles Kojo Vandyck, who is the head of capacity development at the West Africa Civil Society Institute, WACSI. Charles will lead the discussion on the resource mobilization, and then we'll participate in the engagement. So Charles, over to you.
Thank you so much, Farouk, Boubacar, and other colleagues. It's really lovely to have all of you online, a really healthy number of people, and we're really, really happy to be hosting you today to talk about a very, very important subject, basically the fuel that helps us to do our work effectively, and that is resources. So just to recognize everyone in this room, and thank you so much for sharing your names in the chat and where you are calling from or where you are attending from. We're really happy about that. Just a quick reminder that please, my colleagues are sharing a registration form. Please kindly register. We want to be in touch with you subsequently and make sure that this relationship grows from strength to strength. So I'll just like to share my screen quickly. Here you go. Can we see my screen? Can everybody see my screen? Am I good to go?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So yes, so this session, I'll be co-facilitating with my colleague Farouk Alhassan, and we'll be sharing and co-facilitating and interacting with you for the next couple of hours. And so the session is on resource mobilization strategies for climate activism. So we're going to have a conversation today, basically try and demystify. So we're going to have a conversation about resource mobilization, and we are looking at unpacking resource mobilization. So basically, talking about what is or why and what is resource mobilization. We'll also get into the fundamentals. What are those principles or guidelines to resource mobilization? And then my colleague will then come in to look at the different approaches to resource mobilization. And then you also zero in on how do you develop a resource mobilization strategy, right? And an action plan. Because we want to make sure that as you leave this space today, whatever you are doing, whether you are working within an organization, whether you are an activist within a specific community, whether you are a person that works in both spaces, whether it's a foundation, whether it's a community-based organization, you are clear in your mind on what resource mobilization is and how to go about mobilizing resources, either for your organization or for the projects and initiatives that you'll be working on. So these are the topics that we will be having a conversation about. And so let's start with unpacking resource mobilization. So what is resource mobilization about, right? And I'm sure this is something we hear often, right? This is not the first time we've heard the phrase resource mobilization, right? But the most important thing about resource mobilization is that it's not necessarily all about the resources that we are seeking to either secure or add to the work that we are doing. It's about engaging and mobilizing people and organizations. And so resource mobilization is about getting people to support your cause, all of us have a certain cause. Many of us here are either in the climate activism space and maybe individual activists, or we are working in a specific area on the environment, right? Or we work for organizations that where climate justice is a component of the work that they do, right? So we have a specific cause. You mobilize resources for a reason, and the reason is that you are trying to pursue a specific cause. You are trying to respond to a specific problem or a challenge that you have in your community. And in order for you to do that, you must engage and mobilize people and organizations, right? And the reason is that for people to buy into the work that you are doing, they must be able to connect with you. If I am going to give you resources, I must be able to connect with your cause. I must see that this cause will help me or will help my situation, right? So the first thing when we are thinking about resource mobilization is not to think about the money. It's not to think about whether you get some sort of in-kind support or other forms of resources in terms of expertise, in terms of leveraging on people's networks. That's what you should not think about. What you should think about is, what is the cause I am pursuing? And this specific cause that I'm pursuing, is it a cause that people will support? Am I communicating it in a way to get people's attention for them to support my cause? So it's about how I am engaging, how I'm mobilizing people, community people, people at the national level, maybe even at the international level, how I am engaging organizations, right? How I am mobilizing these organizations to support my cause. And it's about securing old, new, and additional resources. So what does that mean? It means already we have resources, right? And not all our resources are necessarily money, right? So how are we maximizing the resources that we already have? Some of us have very good relationships with the communities. That's a resource. Some of us have expertise. That is a resource. Some of us have good networks and we are very good at networking. That is also a resource, right? So how are we securing all these resources? And yes, some of us also have monetary or cash resources. That's also a resource, right? But it's also about mobilizing new resources and additional resources, because we need these resources to push a certain agenda or to push our cause or to respond to a specific problem or challenge that we have. And the reason we are doing this is to support social change. So basically, the climate work we are doing, the environmental activism we are doing, is because we are trying to make sure that we create an enabling environment where all of us as human beings can thrive, right? So it's because of social change. That's the reason we are doing this. We're trying to make our planet more habitable, right? Our planet more nurturing for us to grow in the planet, right? So it's all about social change, right? And like I said before, resources could either be money, and of course, we are all familiar when it comes to the money, because money is a very premium a product or premium thing, tangible. People say money makes the world go round. So money is extremely important. But money is not the only resource. And I think that's the mistake sometimes we make, the focus and premium only on money. There's other resources. There are services. There are goods. There's networks. How are we taking advantage of all these? There's knowledge. There's time. There's moral support, right? And many of us are in movements. And those of us who are in movements can attest to the fact that the strength of a movement is not money. The strength of a movement is a certain commitment to a cause, a certain shared vision of a specific cause that a group is pursuing. That is the strength of a movement. So it's not other money. It's not just money, but it's other resources. right? So there's a very interesting note that is on the PowerPoint. It says, non-financial resources are equally as important as what? As financial ones. And this is something we would want to emphasize today as we start to have this conversation about resource mobilization, having a more holistic perspective of resources and not just reducing it to monetary or cash resources. Let us look at resources from a wider spectrum. As we look at it from a wider spectrum, we can see more opportunities that we can leverage on. Right? But there's a simple way of looking at this. The simple way is that for us to do effective resource mobilization, there are certain stakeholders. There are people that we are engaging, right? And we need to understand these stakeholders because resource mobilization is also done within a context. You cannot just do resource mobilization for no apparent reason, right? Remember what we said, we are pursuing a cause. So it's done within a context, right? And all our contexts cannot be the same. So as you're doing resource mobilization, there are some people that you will meet. They are called donors, right? And back in the days, when you hear the word donors, mostly we think about some organization or some individual philanthropist, either based in the US, in the UK, maybe in Belgium, in Brussels, in Netherlands, right? And those are the people that come to our minds. Either they are philanthropic foundations or they are bilaterals like USAID or FCDO or, CEDA, the Canadians, or the Swedish, or from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. So those are the people that we always think about when we think donors. But we want to challenge everybody today that we need to look at donors beyond those traditional donors that we always get money from. We want to look at donors holistically. So it's not just about international donors, but there are also donors within our countries, national donors and subnational, local donors. And the fact that all of us on this call, once or twice or even more, have donated something, right? Whether we've donated to help a child, we've donated in our community to build something, we've donated maybe in the mosque for a specific project, we've donated at church, we've all made donations. I don't believe there's anybody on this call who has never, ever donated, right? And so we are all donors. So we need to look at the concept of donors in a much broader sense so that we don't limit ourselves. Yes, there are donors that are beyond our borders, but there are also donors within our borders. And then sometimes you will hear that, oh, but our people within our borders don't give, which is not necessarily true, right? We may not have an enabling environment or the formal kind of legal structures and incentives for philanthropy, but it doesn't mean our people don't give. Our people give a lot. I have sat in church programs and I've seen people giving huge amounts of money. I've seen people giving for humanitarian reasons, for when there's a certain disaster, whether it's caused by rainfall or it's caused by, a landslide, or, there's an accident or there's an explosion somewhere, maybe a fuel station. I have seen how we mobilize as Africans to help. I've seen the way we also help family members. So we give. It's not that we don't give. But the question now is, how do we get people, our people, and within the national and local, to give for social causes, right? To give for the environmental causes, right? Maybe that's where the challenge is, to give for social justice. And so we'll be having conversations around this today. But it's important for us to really appreciate the holistic understanding of donors because they're very important in resource mobilization. And then, of course, the whole concept of resources. And this we have emphasized on the fact that resources are not only money, right? There's also what we call in-kind resources. Yes, there's cash resources, but there's in-kind, right? There's services, there's goods, right? And sometimes in certain projects that I have seen, certain communities contribute resources to a project. So they're building a school. There's been a storm, and the main school in this village is totally disrupted, right? It's been damaged. So what do? They mobilize people in the village who have expertise. So they look for a builder, they look for a mason, they look for a carpenter, they look for somebody who sells cement. They come together, they build a temporary kind of school building, right? They have brought resources together. It's not necessarily money, but when you quantify these resources, you can get the monetary value of it, right? So it's important for us not to look at resources as just raw money, right? But other forms of resources and assets that we have. And it's important as we go out there to mobilize resources. And then we'll be learning the mechanism. So the how. How do we actually do this resource mobilization, right? What do we do in terms of when we meet a specific target audience? Do we use the same approaches that we use for international donors when we are approaching our own donors or citizens or domestic donors, or we are mobilizing resources at the local level? Do we use the same approach? What are the different approaches that work, right? And so today we'll be having a conversation in that area. So this is a simple way of looking at resource mobilization. And I would like to encourage all of us who are on the call. We are quite a significant number. As we are going through this training, start to ask yourself and reflect and say, what is it that I'm learning that I can apply to my context? And how am I going to apply this, right? How do I take what I'm learning to apply to my situation, my unique situation, right? And I always believe that when it comes to training, there's always something for someone, right? But it's about our ability to apply to that context, right? So this is a simple way, and it would be great if this is something that you can put in your mind, right? So what is not resource mobilization, right? And this is important, right? So resource mobilization is not begging, right? And I always joke about this because I say begging is a whole skill in itself. It has its own methodology. Begging is not resource mobilization, right? We all know what begging is. People beg, right, for mostly survival means. They ask for support, alms, or charity, right? They don't ask you to support a cause. They are begging for survival. It's a different technique. It's a different motive, right? Begging is not resource mobilization. So today we are not learning about how to beg. We are learning about how to mobilize individuals and organizations to support our causes with their resources. It's not a begging. We're not begging people. It's because we are clear in our mind on what we are trying to achieve as climate activists. So we're not begging. We have a cause we are passionate about. We have a cause that we are bringing people along in our communities to support. We have a cause that we want to respond to. So we are not begging. We are also not harassing, right? So resource mobilization is not about harassing people, right? And harassment is basically subjecting someone to some sort of aggressive pressure or intimidation, right? We're not harassing, right? We don't need to harass. And so if you find yourself in a place where people are harassing you to support them with certain resources, right? You must know that, no, this is not resource mobilization. Because you see, with resource mobilization, you are unlocking people's hearts and minds so that they can then invest their resources in your cause. So they become like co-investors. So you're not harassing people, right? And subsequently, you're also not forcing people, right? Remember what we said earlier, we are mobilizing people. And you know, when you're mobilizing people, you don't force them, right? You try to appeal to them. You convince them that this is a cause worth supporting. Come along with us. This is what we want to do. These are the needs of the community. You are a member of this community. Come along with us, right? So that we can respond to the challenges of this community together, right? So you're not forcing anyone, all right? And I know that sometimes we've all been in situations where you feel, you know, people are forcing you. I've experienced it in certain spaces where they call out your name, you didn't expect it, and they're not very clear about what they want to do. But because you are in the public space, you are forced to, you know, make some sort of investment, and you're never happy about it, right? And so one of the things that we want to emphasize on is that your resource mobilization efforts, when you are engaging, don't harass people. You are not begging, right? And you are not forcing, right? It's because you are pursuing a specific agenda, right? And you are trying to get buy-in in that agenda so that people can support that agenda with their resources, right? So let me just pause a little before I go on. Maybe you have one or two or three questions quickly, just to make this a little bit more interactive. So do we have any questions, please? Or contributions? You can either use the chat or you can ask the questions. Anyone? Any questions, please? Yes, Christopher Wisdom. Kindly go ahead. Kindly go ahead, Christopher.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so resource mobilization is not begging, it's not harassing, it's not forcing. Can we say that it's a forceful persuasion?
Yes, it's about persuading and convincing. I like the word you used there. Okay, but there's no need to say forceful. You know, when something is persuasive, it means it's already convincing. So usually when you are clear about where you are going in terms of your mandate, why you are mobilizing those resources, right? People will support you. When people can connect to what you are doing, people will support. It's human nature, right? So the things we're going to talk about when we talk about the approaches. You see, the approaches, there's a way you go about it. And it also depends on your target audience. So you're right about one thing, Wisdom. It's about persuasion, right? So please, John, Ibrahim, I think it's Abraham, John, kindly go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Kindly go ahead.
All right, so since resource mobilization is not begging, so how do you mobilize resources without correcting the impression? Like, I'm trying to mobilize resource, but I don't want the person that I'm mobilizing the resource from to think that I'm begging. How can I correct sometimes a wrong impression that might come with mobilizing resources from those people I'm mobilizing from? Them understanding that I'm not begging, I'm actually mobilizing the resource. Thank you.
That's a very good question. So I said this in the beginning. I said, remember that resource mobilization is about mobilizing people around a cause, right? So the question is, what is your cause? What is it that you are trying to pursue? What problem are you trying to solve? What challenge are you responding to, right? And how are you communicating that challenge in a way that the people you are approaching can identify with it? You see, so when people are clear about what you are trying to do and see value in what you are doing, right? When you then say, oh, to do this, it will take these resources. What can you contribute? They are more willing to contribute. They will not see it as begging because it is something that they are doing to solve a specific problem that is dear to them, right? And that is why when we go to the different approaches, you hear something like what is called donor mapping or donor profiling, right? You need to profile those you approach. Not everybody you approach will support your cause. If they don't have interest in it, if they don't see themselves, being direct beneficiaries from your cause, they will not support you, right? They must see themselves in your cause. When they see themselves in your cause, they support, because it's about building ownership as you are solving a problem. And that's what resource mobilization. So it's not begging. Remember, when you are begging for survival means. You just want someone to give you something. You're not trying to convince them to support anything, right? Anything that will help the society. I hope that's been helpful. Let me take one more question because of time, and then we move
Can I be heard?
Yes, yes. Abraham, go ahead. Please,
Yes.
one more
Thank you
question
so,
and then we move on.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much for the presentation. My question relates to certain narratives, particularly for environmental issues and related matters that is a bit new in the context in which we work. So in that view, how can you present such narratives when it is new in raising resources for your cause?
Yeah, very, very important. One of the biggest challenges in why we are struggling to raise resources is because we don't tell our stories. In the environmental space, you guys are doing so much work. But when you go online, let's say on YouTube, on other media, we're not seeing those stories of how you're engaging in communities, doing biodiversity, fighting companies that are destroying the environment, and some of the successes that have come out of that, pushing for certain policy changes. And people always support you when they can see with the tangibly what you're doing with the resources that you have been given. I was in a plane coming from UK to Ghana. There was an advert by Comic Relief. They are doing some work in northern Ghana, right? I saw Ghanaians dipping into their pockets. They were giving pounds, not cedis, right? And others, even Liberians and Sierra Leoneans, dipping into their pocket and giving and putting it in the envelope. And I asked people, why are you giving to Comic Relief? They said, oh, we know them, right? We know Comic Relief. They are part of the Charities Commission. They always communicate what they are doing. They're very accountable. When you go there and you click on their name, you can see all the money that has come to them and what they've used the money for. They are helping our people and we can see it. So it's also about our accountability, our transparency, and also whether we are telling our stories, right? And that is the only way you can convince people. People want to see what you're doing with it, right? And so then people will say that, oh, this is a good cause. You're not just begging and using the money for your own private gain, right? And that's what resource mobilization about. Resource mobilization thrives on credibility and accountability. If you don't have accountability and credibility, you will not be successful in mobilizing resources, whether it's an international donors, whether it's national donors, or even local donors. Everybody, every donor wants to know how you are using their resources. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. So let's just move on. I know the other questions, please put in the chat. I'm sure my colleagues will prompt me. Because of time reasons, we'll come back to those questions. So thank you so much. So what are some of the fundamentals of resource mobilization, right? Resource mobilization thrives on a proactive mindset. And please, this is extremely important. If you want to be good at mobilizing resources, or let's say if you want to be effective at mobilizing resources, right, you need to have a proactive mindset. You cannot be reactive. You need to be thinking in the future. And that means when you are developing your resource mobilization strategy for a specific project or a plan, you need to be forward thinking, right? How much resources do we need to do the work that we are doing? What kind of resources do we need? Where can we get these resources? And remember, I've challenged all of us that, look, we just don't have to depend only on international traditional donors. Yes, they give nice and good money, yes, but there's also opportunities to get some resources from the national, sub-national, also from our diaspora. As Africans, we have a lot of people in the diaspora. When you look at the remittances that come from the diaspora, sometimes it's much more money than our governments get in terms of overseas development assistance, in terms of aid. It's way more. So that means what our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers are sending from abroad is substantial. The question is, where does that money go? How can we tap into that money to support the causes that we are doing? One of the things I've noticed, and I said this earlier, is that we need to become more visible. We need to become more visible. Our colleagues, our citizens, our fellow citizens, our brothers and sisters abroad, they will support us if they see what we are doing, right? If we are accountable and transparent and we've built credibility, right? Because they support other causes outside the continent. So why can't they support causes within the continent? Our own citizens will support. We've seen our citizens mobilizing to respond to humanitarian stuff. Look at what happened in Malawi when there was the cyclone. Look at how people mobilized. Recently in Ghana, there was some spillage of water affected some parts of the Volta region. Look at how people mobilized, private citizens, private organizations, right? So it's not like people don't want to give, but people want to be convinced that they are giving to a cause worth giving to, right? So it's about us having a proactive mindset. It's about us offering something in return for being supported. What are we offering? What value are we offering? Right? We want people to support us. What is our level of credibility? What is our track record? Right? Can we be trusted with resources? How have we managed resources in the past? What have we put in place to make sure that we are going to manage the resources that will be given to us in an effective, efficient, in a pragmatic manner, right? So basically our work is about our ability to convince people that we can give value. But the question is, what is that value we are giving? Nobody will support you with resources if they are not convinced that you are worth supporting, right? And then it's also about developing and maintaining contacts and networks. As for resource mobilization, it's all about contacts. It's all about networks, right? From my experience, I've been able to mobilize certain resources just because of networks. I once had an opportunity to speak to a donor from Hewlett Foundation, and I got an opportunity to speak to this donor in Dakar, in Senegal. It just took 15 minutes of me introducing WACSI's programs, and that was it. That's how the relationship started, right? And so sometimes it's not just about what you wish or what you hope, but you must have something of value. You must be able to then communicate that thing, right? And then you start to see the results. And for you to be able to see the results, you must build a relationship. So within fundraising circles, we say friend raising before fundraising. Friend raising before fundraising. And it's an admission that buildings don't give you money. So when you get money from maybe, what do you call it? Maybe Hewlett Foundation or Rockefeller Foundation or Climate Reality or IUCN, it's not the buildings that are giving you money. It's individuals that work there that have been convinced that they should support you, right? So how are you building relationships with potential donors? Do they trust you? Do you have a track record? Are you able to align the work you're doing with their objectives, right? So it's about friend raising before fundraising. So resource mobilization is about cultivating relationships. right? So the whole ideas of making sure you have contacts, and that's why we're going to talk about donor mapping, right? Donor profiling. You need to have contacts, right? You need to make use of networks. If you don't have contacts, if you don't have networks, it's difficult, right? I know back in the days, people are always happy to say they know these people. They know these people. But resource mobilization is not about the people you necessarily know, but it's about who knows you, who knows about the work that you are doing. And so visibility is extremely important. Resource mobilization is also a determined and focused effort, right? So it's not something you do accidentally or ad hoc. It's very deliberate, right? And so we're going to get into the resource mobilization process. It is very systematic. You cannot afford to take shortcuts, right? You must go step by step, and that is how you get results. And it doesn't matter the type of donor that you are approaching. Everything you do must be very deliberate, right? And focused. And so we'll get into that as we look at the resource mobilization process, right? So this is important. If you don't get anything today, I'm praying, and keeping my fingers crossed that this is what you will take away. Extremely important, right? So as you can see, the resource mobilization process is cyclical. One phase feeds into another, right? And if you look at what is on the PowerPoint, you will notice that the first thing that you need to think of is to consider your goals, needs, and capacity. So as an individual, as an organization, what are you seeking to achieve? What is your mission, right? What are your strategic objectives? What are you trying to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years? What are they? What are the things you want to do, right? If you are clear about that, then what are your needs? What are the resources that you need? What are the capacities that you need to build? Right? So basically, you need to be clear about your financial situation. Where are you now? What are the resources that we have? And what are the resources that we need to mobilize in order to achieve what we want to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years? So that's the first thing you must do. You must be very clear. What is my financial situation? So currently, how much resources do we have? And from who? How much money do we have from which donors? Where are the donors based? Who are these donors? Whether they are institutional donors, organizational, they are individual donors, whether they are international, whether they are national, or even within the local community in which you work, who are these donors? Right? And then who are your potential donors? Who are those donors we want to now mobilize resources from? First of all, we have donors now. How is that relationship? How are we maintaining our relationship with our existing donors? How are we ensuring that our existing donors will continue to support us to the long term? And then who are the potential donors that we now want to approach? And for you to have all this information, and like I said earlier, you need to do a donor mapping and then do a donor profiling. And it's important. This is the part that a lot of people don't do. They just get up straight, get into, oh, we need to mobilize. And then they realize that they start getting so many rejections. They get so many frustrations because they haven't done the homework of really profiling donors. And what does profiling donors mean? It means you have a mission, you have an objective. Now, it's now going to look for potential donors that align with your mission and objective. And the way to do that is, first of all, to identify these donors, to get a little bit more information on them. Where are they? Who are they? What is their story? What have they supported before? Right? Who are they supporting now? What are their terms in terms of when you engage them? What are their terms? What are their values and principles? Do they align with my values and principles? So you build a database, a very extensive database, and you don't have to use a complicated platform. Excel will work nicely, right? You have your donor list there. And it's important because many of us work in organizations and maybe we leave that organization. So if you build that database, the next person who comes, it's a smooth transition because there's already a database of donors. There's already information about donors that were approached, what was supported, etc. Right? So the donor mapping and profiling is key because there it helps you to assess your financial situation. It assesses your needs. It also helps you to get a picture of who you want to approach. You cannot skip this stage and go straight to mobilize. You know that you will never be successful. Because they'll ask you a question. When you meet donors, I've seen this before. People go out there, they sell a beautiful story because they can communicate. And then the donor asks them, okay, nice, interesting. So how much do you need? And for what? And then the person is confused because they haven't done their homework. Or sometimes they ask them, but why are you approaching me? What is it about me as a donor that you feel aligns with the work? And the donor realizes that you haven't done their homework, your homework, right? So the assessing phase is important. Donor profiling, digging deep. You may even call it due diligence if you want. Digging deep. And you see, one of the things we need to understand is that in as much as we are looking for donors, there are also donor organizations that are looking for credible partners, right? So the way we position ourselves is key, right? That's why I keep on saying visibility is important. If I'm a donor organization, I'm looking for a credible partner, but I cannot find any information on you online, whether it's by website, social media platforms, or any other information about what you are doing and your track record, it'd be very difficult for me. Or I can't find people who can make referrals about your work. It will become very difficult for me to support you because I'm not seeing your stories. You're not visible, right? So assessing, that first phase of assessing is key. Then you go to positioning. So now you are building a house, you are building the foundation, and now you're trying to put the pillars, right? So what's your positioning? So now you're looking at the donor market, you're doing your analysis, right? Okay, these are the donors that I should approach. Because I work in climate activism, these are the donors that support climate work. These are the donors I should approach. They've also supported something similar to the work we are doing. These are the individual philanthropists who have supported this kind of work before, right? And so you dig deep there. But there's something there that is very interesting. It says choose your team. So resource mobilization is a team effort. And that is why sometimes when you go to certain organizations, they have a resource mobilization officer, but that person is struggling to make an impact because everybody has left the responsibility to that officer. No, the resource mobilization officer is more of a coordinator. That's the person that is coordinating the efforts. But resource mobilization is everybody's responsibility within an organization. So most organizations will put together a resource mobilization team. And usually that team is made up of different types of skill sets. So just because you're an executive director, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in the resource mobilization team, right? There's different types of skill set. You probably need somebody there who's very good at communicating. Maybe you need somebody there who's a grassroots mobilizer if you're working in communities. Maybe you need somebody there who has got a track record of fundraising, right? Maybe you need somebody there with a financial background. How are we going to manage the resources that come in, right? So developing the team, developing your case, your product. That means developing your argument for people to support you. It's called case for support, right? Developing how you're going to go out there to get people to support you. That is your positioning. right? So when we go out there as organizations or individuals, we have to make a case for people to support us. So we need to be convincing. Remember, our colleague used the word persuasive. And to do that, we can't do that as individuals. We need to put together a team. We need to put together material that will help us to convince people. Maybe you may need some sort of leaflet. Maybe, you may need a video. Different ways of convincing people. Because now you are clear about your targets, which is the potential donors. So you know which kind of approach that you need to convince a specific donor. Some donors would love to receive a proposal. Others may just be interested in a concept note. Others, none of those. Maybe they are more convinced of face-to-face, right? Others may be moved by when they see a video that you've done and invite you to have a conversation with you. So there are different ways, right? So I'll just pause here. Abdul, just a quick question from you and we move on. Go ahead, Abdul. Abdul Razak. Go ahead, Abdul. Can you hear me, Abdul? Maybe you have to unmute. Okay, I think Abdul is having a bit of a challenge. So assessing and then positioning. When you do that, then you move ahead to mobilize, right? Because now you've done your homework. You've done the assessing. You've done the profiling of your donors. You have a team in place. You've done your analysis of the donor market. You've created the products that will help you communicate your story. You've decided on the delivery strategies, on how you're going to approach each of the donors. Then you go out there and do what? You mobilize. Now you're actually going into the field. And for you to go there, of course, for every resource mobilization effort, you must have a budget. You must decide on how you're going to go about it. Are you going to do an event? A fundraising event? Are you using crowdfunding? So there are different approaches. And my colleague Farouk will talk about those approaches. Are you using proposals? Are you using face-to-face? Personal selling? Different ways of getting money or support. And of course, here, communicating, the skill of being able to convince people is important. So that's why your fundraising teams are important. Sometimes even the team is not enough. You may need volunteers, depending on the kind of the target audience you are looking at, right? So there's a lot that goes in here when you're mobilizing. But there's a very interesting thing in number 10. It says, dare to ask. And that's where sometimes the problem is. Sometimes while we are on the field mobilizing, trying to convince people either through proposals, we even forget to ask, make the ask. The ask being, oh, this is the amount of resources that we need. This is the amount of money we need in terms of cash. This is the amount of resources we need in terms of in-kind. And this is what we are looking at in terms of your support. Sometimes we don't ask. So sometimes as when we meet potential donors, they love what we are doing. They find what we are doing innovative, but we fail to make the ask. And that's extremely important, right? And so when we ask, usually, sometimes we get feedback. People donate, right? So the question is, then that means we have to deliver. Because remember, it's about your track record. If I have given you resources and you have not delivered, it'll be difficult for me to come back to support you again. So the delivery stage is important. And while I'm delivering, I'm keeping all the donors in the loop, giving them updates, sending them reports. Some may like written reports. Some may like voice notes or videos. So it depends. And in all these things, I'm also appreciating them, saying thank you. right? Appreciating their support. If I'm organizing programs as I'm delivering, I invite them, I recognize them, I give them speaking roles if possible. That's all part of donor appreciation. Even those ones who may not have given us resources, we still say thank you for giving us an audience, because there's potential that in the future they will support. So donor appreciation and recognition is extremely key. You need to do it consistently and deliberately. And then there's somebody who should be on the resource mobilization team who is in charge of that, communicating with the donors, engaging with the donors. So just to give a quick example, we are working on a very interesting project called the Ringo Reimagining NGOs. And I was just recently talking to a couple of donors. I talked to them in November, but I decided that no, beginning of the year, there's a need for me to also have that conversation. And they love that. They like updates. All donors, because it gives them a certain assurance that their resources are recognized and are being well spent, and that the cause that they also are connected to, we are pursuing that cause. We have not veered off, right? So Abdul, quickly, do you have a question or contribution, please? Maybe you need to unmute. Abdul. Okay. So I think Abdul is still having
okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Abdul, yes, go ahead, Abdul.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. As per me, there's something that I've really seen about the donor formation. Because as you can see in the issues of climatic issue, it is a very wide range thing in which really needs a lot of collaboration, where we really need to come up with people from different people within, let's say, a county or a country, because asking for a donor for particular donation working with such types of climate, you really need to have a large number of people or large, a well-organized organization whereby it really covers a very large area or a big space, rather than how we do donation on issues of organization where we deal with the community on matters of sexual, gender-based violence and what. Because climate is very, very wide. And when we want to work on something like, let's say in our country, in Kenya, we have some particular area which are semi-arid. And these areas are very big, in which one you want to come with donation. This is just a donation where you just go and face one donor, just a national donor, just a simple donor who is not having a good funds, or just a small community to impact on your project. So this is a formation whereby I think it will be very possible if we come together, let's say like in Kenya or in Mombasa, where I come from. Let us come, let us meet, let us network, people from Mombasa, network in one area and see what are we going to do, where are we going to ask for a donation? Are we going to use the county government, or are we going to use the national government before asking for the international donors, so for us to help us? Because there are some projects which are very big, and for the climate isn't a small thing. This is something that covers almost a very big kilometer of area, or covering a big community in our area. So I think it is going to be a better thing if we come up together and find on which ways are we going to tackle the project according to our countries or county where we are coming from. Me, I think that is going to be better for us to approach the issue very fast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdul. Very, very insightful and helpful comment. And I think it's important, and Abdul, thanks for raising this, the power of collaborative advantage when it comes to resource mobilization. Look, now it's about partnerships. We cannot achieve anything if we don't work with each other. And I agree 100% with Abdul. Most of our resource mobilization successes are in situations where we are working with partners. We're able to mobilize significant amounts of resources and do good work. Because you see, you don't have everything, but you can find a partner that can complement the work that you're doing. So in our space, it's not about competitive advantage, right? In our space, it's about collaborative advantage, right? And most donors now actually are very excited to see people collaborating and partnering. But it's still one of the biggest challenges in civil society. I'm hoping that in the climate activism, it will be different, right? We don't like to collaborate and we like to compete. This is something we need to work on. That is why sometimes we are not successful in mobilizing the kind of resources that we need. There's so much duplication. It looks like we are doing the same things in the same communities when we could have come together to do something even more significant and impactful. So Abdul, that your contribution is really, really great. Lamin, you kindly say the contribute and then we move on. Go ahead, Lamin, Dafe.
Okay.
Kindly
Hello.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. My contribution is like the resource mobilization we're talking about. This is like it's a project that we even working on, but like our resource mobilization, what you were saying about you need to have information about your donors. Like I could see most of the things that you said are the things that we lack. So that one, like it's like you I don't know how to explain this. These are some of the things that we need to go back to and develop on them so that we can like get to where we want to be. So
Excellent.
you need to know some of the things that you said, like you need to know the agendas that those donors want to like whether your goals, like what you want to achieve is the same thing that the donors also want to. I don't know whether you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I understand. I understand, Lamin. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Lamin,
those were
Lamin, I
some of the
understand. You've read. Go ahead, Lamin.
those were some of the things that we were lacking from our distance. So we need to go back to those things and prepare as you said before. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
thank you very much for this thing. Like I've learned a lot from it.
Thank you too for being here, Lamin. Thank you. So Lamin
You're
has
welcome.
raised something very important. Thank you, Lamin. Lamin has raised something very important. He's talking about alignment. You see, nobody will support you if it doesn't align with their own objectives or their values. So your story should end with the donor story. And this is where the issue of meeting of minds and unlocking people's hearts come in. I cannot support you if I don't feel what you're pursuing is something that connects to me on a personal level. How will I support you? So this is what Lamin is talking about, aligning our stories with the potential donor stories. And the only way we can actually do that alignment, right, or that connection is when we know the donors. When we do the donor profiling and the donor mapping, the preparatory work, you see, all of us here can be very good resource mobilizers. In resource mobilization, preparation is everything. It's not really about the mobilizing. When you assess, when you position yourself well, mobilizing is very fluid. The first two steps are more important than the last two. And this is what Lamin is saying. The preparatory work, when we invest more in that, our resource mobilization successes will increase, right? So mobilizing resources is not what? A process. It's a process and not a one-off event. And I think I need to emphasize a lot on this. It's a process and not a one-off event, right? And I think sometimes we need to understand that resource mobilization takes relationship building. It takes time. It's a long-term investment. And I think a lot of people don't have patience to build these relationships. So for example, WACSI, some of the relationships now that we have, we started cultivating these relationships 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it took some of the relationships took 3 to 4 years to actually show tangible outcomes. We had to court them. It's like you're in a relationship with, for young men, trying to convince a young lady, right? It takes time. The lady has to be convinced of why you are the person to come and basically respond to her so-called challenge or problem. Let's just put it that way. Why you? What's special about you? You need to be convincing. The lady has attention from so many different guys. So many guys are telling her different things. But what is special about you? Why should she take your proposal? What is it that you are going to do differently? And sometimes, people are not convinced, and they want to have a relationship with you. And that is in a relationship situation, it's the friendship. And that's why we say friend raising, right? Before fundraising. How are you building this friendship and relationship with people who are potential donors? So it's a process and not an event, and you must make a deliberate investment. Very, very deliberate investment. You cannot be doing this thing like ad hoc. When you see a call for proposal, you just apply. That you don't have a specific strategy on who you are targeting, which calls you are looking out for, how you are even going to put together these materials. You can't do resource mobilization like that and succeed, right? And it's also about opening the heart, convincing the mind. Very important. We are human beings. The people who work in these major international organizations, they are human, like you and me, right? If you have a good relationship with them, when you are always on their mind, they will get in touch with you. I've seen many situations where organizations have not applied. Even if it happens to WACSI, there's a call, we don't have time, or maybe we are overwhelmed. We don't apply. The donors themselves come back to us and ask us, Charles, why don't you apply for this? And I tell them, oh, we are busy. They say, don't worry, we'll help you. I mean, can you imagine? Like, oh, and we're like, okay, are you sure? You said, no, we'll help you, because they want you, because you have built a certain relationship with them. They believe you can deliver your credible track record. And for them, they need to also report back to the people that give them the resources. So they want to make sure they're dealing with a legitimate and credible organization, right? So this is just an example, right? So they're also looking for credible partners, right? So how convincing are you with your track record? Are you appealing to them? Do you interact with them? Have you built relationships with them? So relationship building, friend raising before fundraising, right? And then teamwork, I think extremely important. Resource mobilization is everyone's responsibility, but of course, it must be championed by the head of the organization and management, right? It must be championed by the head of the organization and management. But everybody must see themselves as contributing to the resource mobilization efforts in their organization or group or association or coalition or movement. Everybody must see themselves contributing to that resource mobilization effort, right? And it takes commitment and long-term investment. Very key. Long-term. Some of the things that you will do after this training, some of the moves that you will make based on some of the things you may have picked up either from colleagues or from the presentations, you may not get the fruits of it this year. Yes, you go and do a donor profile, you do donor mapping, you do things, but you may not get the results this year. Even next year, maybe the first half, you not get, but all of a sudden, you realize that getting towards 2026, things are happening. Things are happening. Because you've done the preparatory work. You've built the foundation. And so to be effective in resource mobilization, you must have that strong foundation. Right. And then, of course, the issue of accountability and appreciation. And I think, from my experience, that is one of the toughest challenges in civil society. I'm hoping climate activism, we are a different breed. right? Accountability issues, our transparency issues. There's been too much, murmuring from sometimes potential donors about how sometimes resources are misapplied. And donors, they talk. If you don't take time and you build a bad reputation, the rest of the donors will blacklist you. And sometimes then we don't understand why people are not supporting us. But it's because of a certain relationship that we damaged with a major donor. And then that donor, because they have meetings, shared their bitter experience, and everybody is now cautious with you. So they may love your concept, they may love your programming, they even may love what you put out there, but they're not sure about your accountability. They're not sure about your systems and your transparency. They're not sure if they support you with resources that you'll be able to account for those resources. Then it becomes a problem for them. So we need to work a lot on our accountability. But it's not just also about our accountability. We also need to be bold enough to hold donors accountable when they've also not gone according to their own agreements with us. So at WACSI, sometimes, it's uncomfortable because, sometimes they get tense. But we also tell donors that, no, we don't think that this specific agreement is healthy. We don't think this reporting requirement makes sense. Can we look at changing it? And it's difficult because they also have the ways they work, but you must insist. And the only time you can insist in making such changes is when you've built a relationship and you have a certain track record. Because let's be honest, when it comes to most of the international donors, they're also looking for partners. And in some cases, they need us because we do very good work, right? So we need to look at our accountability and transparency. And then we also need to work on our deliberate recognition and appreciation. I think one of the things that we don't try to do very well is this appreciation, not only for donors per se, but even sometimes within our own organizations, recognizing our staff efforts, recognizing our efforts of our associates, our volunteers, appreciating them. Because it's a culture of appreciation. Appreciation is a culture. It's not something that, you have to build it. And so when it becomes part of the organizational culture, when you are dealing with potential donors, you also find ways to appreciate and recognize their efforts. And then, of course, daring to ask. And the only way we can dare to ask is that when we are prepared. You see, sometimes we go to certain spaces and we meet donors. We didn't know that the donors would be there. But you see an opportunity to pitch a work you are doing with a donor. But if you haven't done the preparation, if you don't know the details of what you're trying to do, and also the budget, how do you ask? And so as resource mobilizers, we must always be prepared. If a donor says, for example, Charles, this INGO reimagining work you guys are doing, this decolonization work you are doing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it sounds interesting. What kind of resources do you need for the next 5 years? And then I can't answer. I'm like, we've not really thought about that. You must know that this is a lost opportunity. Okay, Charles, so this work you're doing in environmental advocacy around illegal mining, right? Looking at issues of how that is impacting the environment. How much work will it, I've noticed that you said it's a 3-year project. How much resources do you need for this? And then, you find it difficult to answer. You should be able to answer quickly in year 1. This is the amount of resources. This is what we'll be doing. Year 2, this is what we hope to be doing. Year 3. So if you look at the total, it would be great if we can get $2.5 million. And when you've done the homework, when you're asking for this, you're bold because you can back it up. When they ask for a budget, you can share it. So please, for us, it's what we've seen is that it's the preparation. We need to invest more time in doing the preparatory work. When you look at the resource mobilization process, the assessing and the positioning, That is where our attention needs to be. Yes, the delivering is important. The mobilizing and delivering is important. But if we don't do the assessing and the positioning effectively, we will not be able to mobilize the resources that we are looking for and deliver in a way that gets us repeat business, that gets us people to come back again to support our causes, right? So I'll end here. My session ends here. Thank you so much for your attention. And I don't know if you have any questions, but we can go ahead, maybe one or two questions, and I'll invite my colleague, Farouk.
Yes, thank you so much, Charles. I'm sure we can take some few questions, and then as we are all aware, we are having the French interpretation as well as the Portuguese. So we can take maybe two quick questions from the English group and take two from the French group and also take probably two from the Portuguese speakers. So I don't know. Let me lead this. So I'm sure Lamin has asked his question already. And then those of us who might not be able to speak to, we can also make good use of the chat and put your question on the chat so that we try to respond to that. So let me go to Shepard first, and then we'll move to the next people. Yeah, Shepard, over to you. Kindly unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. We can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted, So, thank you for this, brilliant session that is at the heart of many organizations. But I just want to basically add on the issue of accountability, just for the benefit of others, because I realize that it has not been mentioned. So in terms of accountability, something that we need to know about is the issue of especially talking about even transparency. There are also issues around the availability of audited statement. Previously, I think donors may also just want to check how we've been doing that. So this speaks to the issue of reporting, that have we been reporting? So this also gives confidence and also helps us in our resource mobilization. And the other thing is also the issue of capacity, that do have the enough capacity in terms of our staff. But I realize that sometimes you also need to fundraise to have enough staff to fundraise, but at the same time you also need to fundraise to have more staff. So it's an chicken and egg situation here, but probably we can have a comment on that. But also there's a whole issue of the capacity to absorb. Sometimes donors also wants to check if we have the capacity to use the resources. Can we absorb? Because some organizations they fundraise and they fail to even utilize the funds. So this is also something that I find as a challenge in so many of our African organizations. I just wanted to just add this as an additional comment. Thank you. Over.
Thank you so much for your question. So let's take Harrison. And after Harrison, we'll go to Martin. Yes, Harrison, you can unmute yourself and speak, please.
OK. Merci beaucoup pour la présentation.
So, Harrison, just une minute. So okay. For our friend who don't understand French, so you just look below, you see the icon of interpretation, and then they'll support you to translate or to interpret what Harrison will be saying in French. Donc, Harrison, vous pouvez continuer. Harrison, you can go ahead, please.
OK. Donc, comme je disais, je remercie tout le monde déjà pour cette belle présentation. Et je vous ai pris de court, donc j'ai peut-être manqué certaines informations, peut-être que ça a été dit. Ma question, c'est de savoir, puisqu'il a été dit ici que il faut beaucoup plus se lier d'amitié, il faut gérer plus sur les relations avec le bailleur, plutôt que de se concentrer même sur la recherche du financement en elle-même. Donc, ma question, c'est de savoir comment est-ce qu'on peut se lier d'amitié, par exemple, à un certain bailleur si on n'a pas forcément des contacts, on n'a pas cette facilité, ce rapprochement avec ces organisations. Merci.
Ok, merci beaucoup, Harrison, pour votre question. Nous allons prendre Martin. Martin, please, over to you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so delighted that I'm able to be part of this wonderful platform. I'm from Zambia, and I'm excited to learn the good things that our comrades had presented. Thank you for that wonderful presentation and very insightful. My question would be, taking advantage of this, what the elaboration and the collaboration that we have created now, how best can we enhance our collaboration with the entrant of the energy transition scramble for the minerals to transit from the fossil fuel to the cleaner energy? We have seen a lot of the Westerners coming into Africa, and this will impact on our environment. How best can we enhance our collaboration for us to drive this agenda effectively and prudently? I submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Martin. I must say that we have the second part of this session, because we just talked about the resource mobilization, what it is, and its cycle. So we'll be talking about more of the approaches, the different type of approaches for us to adopt to be able to mobilize resources. So we hope to be together till 2:30. So just prepare yourself for that. So we'll take the last one. I don't know if you have any Portuguese speaker among those who raised their hand. I can see only one hand here. Ange David.
Thank you. I'm Francophone, but can I go in English? Thank you.
Yes, you can go in English or you can also go in French.
Okay, thank you to Charles. I'm one of the colleagues of Harrison, and I would like to emphasize or maybe have a question. How, Charles, you see, if possible, gap between the Francophone and the Anglophone in terms of fundraising? Because from our perspective as Francophone, it is like there are less funds available in a lot of space for Francophone. And the second issue is your experiences, maybe I'm wrong, but your experiences from a human rights perspective is that they have a lot of funds available. But in my perspective is that as a climate change activist, as a climate change organization, there are less and less, or is very difficult to raise funds for climate issue, because also we have that issue on climate skepticism and a lot of issues. Is it true, or do we have to do more effort than the other, organization involved in human rights? Because, it is maybe less difficult for them to raise funds that for us involved in environmental issue, climate change, biodiversity, who is sometimes a bit difficult. Thank you for this wonderful session. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ange. I believe we have everybody. As I said, we'll still be talking more. So Prince and Martin, will I recommend if you could just put your question on the chat so that we can take it up? I mean, we'll read them to Charles, or maybe after my session, we'll have more time to talk more. So Charles, over to you with your attempt to answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Very, very interesting, pertinent question. I think that the question from our colleague from Zambia on the fossil fuel clean energy conversation, I think these platforms are an opportunity for collaborations to happen. I think that's one thing. We don't really take advantage of platforms where we come together. And I think, colleagues, we would definitely share the lists and contacts. I think we will share it with the group. Please, we'll want to encourage you to connect. Also, Climate Action Network, I mean, they're building a formidable network and they have specific objectives that can help facilitate some of this work. I will encourage those who are not members, please, to really go out there and register to be members. We need to build these kind of membership organizations and movements where we can leverage on our numbers. It's very, 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 very important. And this also helps in terms of our ability to mobilize resources. So that's how I can say that. I mean, the question about the Francophone, Anglophone question, Ange, how are you? It's a very interesting one because you see a lot of the traditional, and that's why I think we need to look at our funding pool beyond typical foundations and traditional donors. A lot of these traditional donors, yes, it is true that they are based in mostly Anglophone speaking countries, and they have their specific countries of operation that they are interested in and specific issues. And it's true that even the language of development is mostly English, which it sadly should not always be. But I mean, this is the reality. So a lot of the time, in terms of their support, it's mostly in Anglophone speaking countries. So there is a point there you make. But I'll say this though. I'll say that this is an opportunity for us, especially for those in the Francophone countries, to look at national and local sources and also to tap into the diaspora, right? Even the Anglophone countries where it may seem that there's resources, that resource pool is dwindling. A lot of international donors, there's what we call donor fatigue. There's also a donor shift into their own, internal issues. They are focusing a lot on their own issues. And so many of these donors are not given the same amount of money that they used to many of these causes. So you're right, Ange, in the human rights space, not only climate, in many of the other areas, donor funding is dwindling. This kind of donor funding is not sustainable for us as Africans. It's helpful, but if we don't find a way to diversify by looking at other sources, which include national, local, but also finding very creative ways of generating income through maybe social enterprises, maybe looking at impact investment, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to do our work. That is why the collaboration is important. If you want to collaborate, the first thing you need to do is connect and talk and find out what you are doing, how what you are doing complements each other. Can you come up with a specific project or a concept that you can get people to invest in? Sometimes it may not necessarily be international investors. We have a lot of businesses in Africa, corporate social responsibility. They don't know what to do sometimes. But like I said, it's building a relationship. So I want to focus on, somebody asked a question about that relationship issue. So I'm not saying that, oh, when you become friendly with people who work with donor organizations, all of a sudden you get the support that you need. But what I'm saying is that the people who work in these spaces, they are individuals like you and me. They have certain passions, a certain understanding, right? And so it's good for you to engage with them, to share what you're trying to do, for them to also communicate to you what the donor priorities are, and build a certain rapport. When you build a rapport, when there are opportunities, they will get in touch with you because they've built a relation. So for example, what you can do is this: when you invite them to participate in your events, instead of just giving them an invitation, give them active roles, especially with the private sector and donors. Don't make them come, sit there. They won't come. They won't find it interesting. Make them chair a session. Make them, contribute in a panel discussion. So you are building you're even giving them a platform for them to share the work they are doing. This is what I mean by building a relation, investing in a relation. So the first year, they may not give you anything. Second year, they may not give you anything, but they've got all your annual reports. Then all of a sudden, third year, you find that what they are trying to do aligns with what you are doing. And because they know you already, they'll support. So this is what I'm talking about. I hope that is helpful. So thank you so much for your attention, and all the best with the rest of the session. So Farouk, kindly take it away.
Thanks so much, Charles, for really walking us through this very important discussion. I would like to also quickly share my screen. Please, can you all see my screen? Please, can you see my screen? Hello, colleagues.
Not the slides.
Yes, Farouk.
You can't see my slide? Hello, can you see my slide, please?
No, not mine.
No.
How about now?
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
Good. Good. So thank you so much, everyone. And thanks so much, Charles, for really laying the foundation for this resource mobilization discussion. So we have discussed a lot. So we are now on the topic of different approaches of resource mobilization. So I would like to check with everybody, I mean, all of us here, when we talk about resource mobilization. I know some of us have had the experience one way or the other to mobilize resources. So this is a platform for us to share our experience. So I want to make it open. Maybe a few people, will you want to share with us some of the strategies or some of the approaches you have adopted to mobilize your resources in the past? Anyone who wants to share his or her experience about how they went to mobilize some resources before I move on to the next slide. So you can just raise your hand, or you can put it on the chat, and then I can read it gladly. I've seen Sandrine hand. So Sandrine, please go ahead and share your experience with us about how you mobilize some of your resources. Yes,
okay.
Sandrine.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd just like to share a little experience. Late last year, we had to organize an activity for our region. It was during the local conference of youth. So like the time was fast approaching. I had no source at all. So by then I was the regional focal point. What I did is I gathered my team. Then we had to look at organizations within my region that work with related concepts to what we are trying to do. So we went up to them. We wrote letters of partnership, of collaborations, and by doing so, we had to mobilize. Like during sessions, some of them had to facilitate session, and at the end, we discovered that we did not even miss any financial, like we needed no money at all, because like we had those organizations that came in, and the activity was practically one of the best activities for a local youth conference, pre-local youth conference in Cameroon, and that's something I'm very proud of. Like, thank you.
Okay, yes, so thank you so much, Sandrine, for sharing. I wanted you to be very specific on the approaches that you have adopted to raise the resources, but it is a good way to hear that you're able to mobilize people to support your initiative in Cameroon. Do we have any other one who would like to share his or her experience, maybe in the past? How were you able to raise some resources? Which approach did you adopt? Yes, I can see Martin. Yes, Martin.
Okay, thank you so much. In our quest to mobilize for resources, we engaged the local authorities, which is the councils where the mining companies are operating. We worked with the councils to develop the strategic plan for the year and the operation plans. So by working with the municipalities, we were able to tap into the resources that were coming from the mines with regards to corporate social responsibility. So the strategy was to collaborate with the local authorities who's hosting the mining companies. Thank you.
Good. So thank you so much for sharing, Martin. That's a great one. I'll take the last one and then we'll proceed. So I saw Christopher hand earlier on, and maybe we'll take Christopher and maybe Ada. Yes, Christopher, go ahead and share quickly.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we have a specific project we run called Mentors Hub, or at other times we call it Leaders Mentoring with Assist, secondary school and then junior high school related leadership project. So what we do is to write we collaborate with or build a partnership with the National Youth Authority at the municipal level. Specifically, let's say that at Konkatamanso in Accra, we collaborate or keep collaborating with the National Youth Authority in the municipality, as well as Foundation for Security and Development in Africa. So because of what they do, they are human rights or gender-based organization as well. So we write to them that, okay, since you have an interest in youth development and then gender project, we are initiating this project and then we want sanitary pad. So if you can support us with a number of sanitary pads, or you want to bring the money along, do that. And then the National Youth Authority assists us in terms of going to the schools and then some other finances resources that needed to aid in terms of the facilitation. So basically directly, largely partnership and the building synergy with the government organization and then other civil society organization. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Christopher, for sharing your experience. Then I will take the last one, Ada, and I will proceed with the presentation. Ada.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Okay, so we were able to use the approach of offering trainings for organizations who are into our areas of expertise. And so we came together and tried to map out organizations who are into the same area. So what we do is actually to train organizations in areas of conflict sensitivity and do no harm, and then monitor organizations to see how they were able to implement activities using this principle in diverse areas of their workings. And so we mapped out organizations who were interested in this training, so to say, and then we offered the trainings at a subsidized rate, which helped us to use the fund to implement other projects. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ada, for sharing, and thanks to everyone. Segun, please, because of time, maybe you can just share your experience in the chat, and we'll read it and learn from you. So thanks so much, everyone. So we have different approaches to mobilize resources. So please, I want to plead with you to give me your attention for the next few minutes. We want to share a video with you. And then after the video, we'll come and have some quick discussion here. So please, let's pay attention to the video. And it's a cartoon, actually, and it's going to talk to you, or is going to share with us the different approaches to resource mobilization. Let's pay attention, and then we'll come back to discuss. Please, I hope we can all hear before I proceed.
Hello, Farouk. Oh.
It seems the video has no sound. We can't hear the audio of the video.
Oh, really? Please, we can all hear the sound? Yes, Melissa, your hand is up.
Yes, I was trying to punch you that the sound we can't hear from you.
Really? So I thought we were all hearing it because it was very quiet. Well, so maybe I can proceed and then later we can all read it. So since we couldn't hear, let me just proceed and share with us. So basically the video was about a young graduate from one of the university. And after her graduation, she also started her civil society work with her organization, but she started lamenting about lack of support from donors because they are not much interested in climate justice or climate action. So through the discussion, we're able to show her other alternative way of raising resources. So when we talk about approaches to resource mobilization, we have different approaches to it. And then I want to share with us the first one that we can think of is submitting a proposal or concept note, right? We all know that when you are able to identify your donors, you should be able to know how are you able to convince them and what are you trying to address. And the in-charge submission is good to be friend first before you now talk about fundraising. Because when you are friend, you're able to discuss and talk about certain issue. So based on the climate or the environmental issue you want to address, then you put it together as a proposal and submit to whoever will fund you. And then we want to really emphasize on this. The resource mobilization should not just be with foreign donors. Even in our local community, we can have people to support our project, our initiative. So we encourage us to also look within, to look local, so that we have resources from our local community. So you can do this through submitting a proposal and concept note. We can also raise funds through organization or fundraising. You know, maybe during a dinner, you organize a dinner, you bring a lot of donors or potential donors, and you invite them for a dinner. When they come for the dinner, then that's where you present your initiative to them that in this community you have this and that going on, and you want people to come in and address. So who is willing to support? So by doing this kind of event, promotion event as well, you are able to have people to buy into your initiative. It could also be raffle, it could also be games. You know, sometimes we organize football or other sporting activity. So when you bring a lot of people together, you are able to sell your ideas because they may come just for the game purpose, but you know what you want to achieve at the end of the day. Then you also share your ideas of raising funds with them, and then they're able to support you. You could also raise funds through donation boxes. We've been seeing sometime in the pharmacies, those kind of boxes where people put and then say donate 1 cedis, for Ghanaian, donate 1 cedi to support a needy child, or donate this amount of money to support this climate issue that is going on in your community. So we can do that as well through donation boxes, or we can also do door-to-door resource mobilization, because if you know your community and you know people who are also living with you, you should be able to go to them and let them understand the project you are working on. It's not like you are begging. It shouldn't be a begging process, but you want them to buy into your initiative. You sell your project, your initiative to them, and then let them buy into it and support you. So it could also be a door-to-door activity. We can also have collecting in-kind contribution. You know, we talked about resources not only being financial, it could be non-financial. I don't know, Ada, your hand is up. If you allow me to finish, and then I will call you later on, right? So we could have in-kind contribution. We talk about used clothes, you talk about furniture or books. All those things can be counted as resources. So resources is not only limited to the cash, you know, and Charles talked about even your knowledge, your skills is a resource. So in your community or wherever you find yourself, and people are able to contribute with those items or ideas, you can also count it as resources to your project. And your volunteer support. So maybe you are a young group of people, and you don't have salary for now, but you are just giving your time to have your project going on. It's also a resources, and you have to count it as resources. So because you are not paying your people, you are not paying salary to your colleagues who are volunteering their time. So those are some of the things that you can count as resources to your project. And we also talk about corporate sponsorship. You know, we work with other business organizations. So for instance, we can talk about MTN in Ghana, you know, those kind of organizations who have other resources that you can fall on as a partner. So you go and see them that, okay, we want to partner with you so that you also come in when we are organizing our event, then we can share your product, we can share your items to the audience so that they buy into what you are doing. So those kind of partnership can also help you to raise funds for your organization. And then we can also talk about subscription and member donation. So here on the subscription and member donation, we are referring to we ourselves as partners of this organization. Maybe at the end of the month, we all contribute to a certain amount of money to mobilize more financial support to our organization, to the cause of our organization. So maybe everybody can decide and say, okay, at the end of the month, we all contribute this amount, and this is how we can all raise funds for your organization. Or maybe it's at the end of the year or every 6 months. So depending on your capability and how you all agree to one another, you can also use that approach to raise funds. So we can also have income from business-oriented projects. You know, sometimes I think, is it Sandrine who talked about her experience? So maybe you have an organization and you also organize other initiatives. So this can serve when you sell this product, the income that you make out of it can also help you to achieve your project with your organization. So it shouldn't just be limited to the donors who are giving you money, but what you're also doing in a subsidy amount, and then you're able to make money, you can use it to help you achieve your objective or to address some of the targets that you have for your climate activism. Then let me move on straight to also share other approaches. We have the revenue generation, for instance, sales and services that we talked about. Sales and services, so for the fees, the license, and royalties. So when you want to also raise resources, you can also fall on these sales and services. For instance, you sell other things, but you keep some of the benefit for the cause of climate action or climate activism. Then it helps you to also achieve so that you don't use everything or the profit that you are making just for your organization, but part of the profit is also being used to help you address your project that you have. And then we talk about, we have public-private partnership. So maybe a government institution partnering with you or your organization to address some issue in the public sector. Yes, this is a good project or this is a good partnership that you are making. But after you make this partnership and you are able to sell your skill and your knowledge with the public, the profit that you are able to make should be able to also be used to address your initiative that you have within your civic space. And then we have crowdfunding. I mean, when it comes to crowdfunding, we know that we have a lot of platforms on the social media where we can use to really raise funds. I mean, we can post issue of climate activism on Facebook, and then you'll be able to raise a lot of money, or on WhatsApp, on TikTok. So we have to be very innovative, right? Be very innovative, very creative, so that people, you're able to convince people, because we talk about convincing the hearts, and then people are able to donate. But if you are not able to convince them, they can't really give you the funding that you need for your project. So that's why we also want you to be aware of the crowdfunding that you can use. And then on this day, we have other innovative crowdfunding tools. I mean, on social media, maybe you can share those things with you, and later you can read more about it. Or you can also have a strategic alliances and partnership. So, for instance, you partner with an organization that is doing well, but you have the skills to maybe implement certain things, but that organization can also help you to raise funds. So you try to do a strategic partnership with those people, and while you are implementing, and then they are raising funds, and then you work together and see how both of you as partners, you'll be able to raise funds for your organizations. And the innovation and technology. We all know that we are in the area of technology, and that this is a very important tool that we need to really rely on to be able to raise our resources as much as we can. So using those tools can help us to raise a lot of resources for our organization. So all in all, these are some of the approaches that we want to share with you. This is not really exhaustive. We have more other approaches that we can utilize to raise resources or to mobilize resources. Let me just go straight to also share with us another key thing that we need to pay attention to, which is the donor appreciation. I think Charles made mention of it in his presentation. When somebody is able to support you, you should be able to go back to tell the person thank you, because thank you is very, very important. How do we say thank you, and when do we say thank you? So you need to say thank you during the implementation of your activity. You also need to say thank you after the implementation of your activity. So don't wait for the money to finish before you go back to the donor, or I mean, not only money, the resource that the person will have supported you. Don't wait for it to get finished before you go back and say thank you. So you need to say thank you as you are implementing or after the implementation. And how do you say thank you to your partners? You can say thank you through email. I mean, by way of updates, you can send an email to your partner and say thank you for this and that. With the books that you've given us, we're able to educate this number of beneficiaries or this number of people on the project. Or you can also share an accurate and timely reporting with your partners. So you summarize what has happened, how you were able to utilize the resources they're giving you, and then give them accurate updates. This can help them to really appreciate that the fund that they've given you, you are making good use of it. And then another thing that you can also do will also be to request for project visits. You can extend a hand to them. Oh, please, you've given us, the last time we came to your organization, and then you supported us with these resources and these other resources. We are implementing it, and we want you to come and witness the impact of your donation in our beneficiary. So this is very, very important. So you have to extend this invitation to them. Don't wait for them to always request to come to your organization or to your beneficiary to come and see what their donation is doing. No, sometimes you have to also be proactive. Let them come, invite them to come and witness what is going on with the donation that they have given you. By doing so, you are also promoting accountability. And we talked about it. Accountability is very, very, very important when it comes to resource mobilization. Everybody wants to know where his cedis or his penny is gone to, how the 1 cedi the person has donated is transforming somebody's life or is changing somebody's life. So it's good for us to really be accountable in our work. So we can do this through project visit. The other thing we can also do is a video or an audio of our beneficiary. So you recording a nice video and sharing with your partners. Okay, sir or madam, thank you so much for supporting our initiative on addressing this environmental issue. This is a summary video of what your support was able to do, and the person will never forget it. So these are some of the tools that we can use to be able to keep our donors with us, to be able to appreciate their efforts with us. It can also be audio. I mean, getting some of your partners, your beneficiaries who have benefited from the donation to speak and share their experiences, how the donation or the support has helped them in their lives. And then you share with your donors. This is how they will really appreciate their support that they've given you and then want to give more of such support. How do you also appreciate your donor? You can also do this through reports or media reports. For instance, you invite media houses to come and report your activities. Maybe it is a launch, or you are engaging your beneficiary on the environmental issue in the community, or you are engaging stakeholders on certain particular issue. You want to adopt some bylaws so that people will stop polluting the environment, or people will stop cutting down trees, or galamsey, people stop mining just anyhow. So you should be able to invite media houses and let them report on this, and then you share with your donors. When you share this with your donors, then they really appreciate the effort that they are also making in the project. And you should be able to also give credit. Give credit to your donors by appreciating them anytime you speak about your initiative. You have to mention their name and say that this is done with the support of this organization and that organization. And when they hear that, they're also very happy. It could just be a verbal thank you as well. I mean, you can give them a phone call, call them and say thank you for your support, and then they will really appreciate. So this is just to also build on what Charles has taken us through when it comes to resource mobilization, because we definitely need to keep our donors up to date. Let them be aware of what is going on when they are able to donate something in your project. So there is this very intriguing question about gifts. What about gifts? Do you think we can also use gifts to say thank you to our donors? Well, we'll discuss more about it. I don't know if anyone have a thought on that. Do you think we can use gifts to also say thank you to our donors when they support us, be it financial or non-financial support? Maybe I can take some few remarks here or comments here. What do you think? Can we use gift to say thank you to our donors? Yes, Abraham, go ahead. Candle, unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Okay, while Abraham tried to unmute himself, let's go to Asleba.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that insightful presentation. I think we can use gifts to appreciate our donors. However, we also need to be very cautious because some of the donors have policies against accepting gifts, and we just need to tread careful so that it doesn't come out like we are soliciting for favors next time, and also not to put them in trouble within the organizations. And also some donors are getting money from their taxpayers, so it doesn't look like there are things coming out that are not supposed to.
Okay, thank you so much, Asleva. Let me go to Segun first, and then I'll come to Kayondo. Yes, Segun. What do you think? Can we use gifts to also say thank you to our donors?
Okay, so for me, I think you try to you said there are financial and non-financial. So I think going through some of these contracts of funders, most times they say they don't accept gifts from partners or grantees. So I think it would be nice to learn from you anyway, but I don't think financial sounds more appropriate. Maybe corporate documents or publications cards and order may be accepted. That's my thoughts, though. So it would be nice to hear from others and you. So thank you.
Exactly so. Thank you so much for sharing. So let's go to Kayondo. What do you think?
Okay. Thank you so much for this great presentation. Actually, just adding on what my colleagues have said, and I was looking at a scenario. Maybe a donor helped you to maybe they donated resources to do maybe something like fruit trees at a school or in the community. Then the time comes and maybe they visit you. I think you can maybe give them something from like some results from whatever they donated. Maybe the fruit trees actually yielded something. I think when they visit, you can, yeah, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can. So I mean, we still have some hand. We have Abraham.
Yes, I think Abraham. I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want to belabor the point. The point has been raised by my colleagues. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. This is quite a very tricky question. What about gifts to appreciate our donors? Well, you have to know your context. You know, in Africa, we don't reject gift, they say, right? I mean, imagine you go to a community and the chief of the community give you 2 bags of yam. And you say, no, you don't take it because your organization, you don't do that and stuff. So you have to really know the context and the situation very well. And you also have to be aware that it's not everyone that you need to donate something to. Because sometimes others can also interpret it as a way of bribing. Probably you want to bribe them so that next time they'll give you again and stuff like that. So depending on the context you find yourself, then you determine how you do that. And then it's also important to be aware. Hello. It's also important for you to be aware of the amount involved. Certain organizations do not accept. Jenny K, please, can you mute yourself?
Then you check the second time. You check.
So we need to know the context we find ourselves before we accept or give those kind of materials as gift after a donor has supported us. So it's a food for thought. We can all think about it and talk more. Now let me move straight to the resource mobilization and action planning. We spoke a lot about resource mobilization. So the time has come now for us to be able to develop some strategy for ourselves as organization. By the end of this 2 hours, 30-minute training, we want you to be able to develop your own resource mobilization plan. So the first thing you need to do is to have a good background. So you have to explain a little bit about what you want to do as an organization. What's the issue you want to address? And then what its importance in your community and then for your constituent. So you try to give a background to whoever wants to take your strategy to be able to support you. And then the rationale for the resource mobilization strategy, you should be able to tell us how you want to go about it, to be able to raise this kind of resources. And then you should be able to be open in terms of resources. Don't really put it only financial. If you need some income, you should be able to outline them so that if the donor does not have the cash and have the income, can still support you. And then you have what we call sources and targets. So for instance, you have a target of 5,000 Ghana cedis. You should know where do I get this fund from and who will be able to support us with this fund. So you have sources and targets. So for instance, you identify MTN as your source. So what's the target that you want to achieve from MTN? Say 500 Ghana cedis. Then you identify water company as your source. How much do you want to achieve from this other partner? Then you also set a target for each one of your potential donors that you have, then it helps you to track it, to be able to achieve your goal at the end of the day. And then you have activities and methods and techniques that you should use. You know, we spoke about the approaches. So this is where these ones come in. Are you going to do a door-to-door activity? Are you going to do a donating box? Are you going to do a resource, a community mobilization? Or are you going to organize a football game or a sports activity so that people will come, and then through the fundraising initiative, then you talk to them about the issues so that they're able to support you? Or are you going to do a crowdfunding? So this is where you determine activities, method, and techniques that you want to apply to be able to raise those resources. And then you also need to come out with the implementation budget. You know, before you go on for this resource mobilization, you need some budget. You should be able to come out with those implementation budget to know how are you able to mobilize this fund, who will be able to support you. And that's where you also have to kind of capture your volunteers' time, because there are also resources. You need to also capture it as you proceed. And finally, you have what we call monitoring and evaluation plan. At the end of the day, you should be able to evaluate how have you been able to do this and that, so that it helps you to address. I'm sharing a link in the chat so that we all click on it. It will lead you straight to a document. And with that document, it can help you to develop your organization resource mobilization strategy and action plan. Maybe when you click on it, you see other information which help you to know your donor. Like, it helps you to do your donor profiling and things that you need to follow to be able to raise these resources that you need.